Hello and welcome to the table, Baldurs Gate and DND friends, to both a nostalgic character build and a showcase of a mod that brings back memories for many World of Warcraft players. This mod showcase and character build we cover the Demon Hunter class. This is a modded class you can find on the Baldurs Gate 3 mod Nexus workshop, of which I will leave a link in the comments below for you to check out after watching this video. Very similar to my Dread Overlord video, we'll go over the lore and backstory of the class before diving into the mechanics and the unique features presented in-game, as well as leveling in all 12 levels without multiclassing. Now, yes, I know, as a side note, I'm sure many of you really want to think about multiclassing potential for the Demon Hunter, seeing what synergizes well with it and how best to min-max and all that, and I can totally respect that. It's definitely something we should discuss in the comments, as well as dedicate several separate, and I do emphasize on separate videos too. For now, I do want to give the mod author due justice by showcasing the mod leveled entirely on its own, especially with the amount of effort and passion it took for them to really bring this class to life for us. I do love the base game of Baldur's Gate 3, but the thing is, these mod authors are bringing plenty of replayability and creativity with the new races and classes for us to experiment with. Now, before we get into the mechanics of the class, let's go over the background and the lore of the mod as follows. You were not prepared. The enemy came into our world, their only desire to extinguish all life. They slaughtered our loved ones, they razed our homes, our cities, and our sacred places. You tried to stop them, and you failed. And so you came to me, nothing remaining of you but rage and determination. And you learned the things that once tormented you could give you power. Now you see that there is no sacrifice too great if it brings an end to the burning legion. The Demon Hunter class provides a unique gameplay experience through its key mechanic, Metamorphosis. Metamorphosis allows the Demon Hunter to embrace their darkness and turn it into a powerful demon for a limited time, gaining boosts on all of its abilities. The Demon Hunter class utilizes a unique action resource called Fury, with certain Demon Hunter spells consuming Fury and others generating it. The Demon Hunter class is proficient with light armor and dual-wielding martial weapons. Foregoing heavy armor, Demon Hunters capitalize on speed and mobility. The class's primary ability is dexterity and uses charisma to cast spells. The Demon Hunter class also has two subclasses, Havoc and Vengeance. But side note, Vengeance is a subclass that the mod author is working on and states that it is in progress. It is not available to us at this point in time. However, with Havoc, Demon Hunters are brooding masters of warglaives and the destructive power of fell magic. They are agile melee damage dealers, swiftly closing in on their foes and invoking infernal might to unleash devastating doom. Demon Hunters embrace the demon within to incinerate enemies and to protect their allies. When embarking on a fresh quest, the Demon Hunter class starts with a pair of legendary weapons known as, and I'm sorry if I mess up the pronunciation on these, the warglaives of Azzinoth. These exceptional armaments will evolve and unlock new passive abilities for your Demon Hunter character as they level up. Alright, after reading all of that, the mod author has genuinely tried to keep the class as close to the WoW original class as possible, even going as far as to implement those warglaives. They absolutely look sick and also they're very insane to use in combat. Also, I like the whole idea of Metamorphosis mechanic looking and sounding incredibly sick. The thought of using evil to fight against evil and essentially towing the line between not giving in to the dark powers to become the very evil which you are meant to destroy, that's a character concept I can definitely get behind. Also, before we dive further into the class, dexterity and charisma are great abilities that fit the class roleplay wise, as speed is what gives the demon hunters their edge in combat against the creatures of the abyss. Having this as a charisma caster makes a ton of sense since it almost gives warlock vibes a la Pact of the Fiend. We'll see this later on in the full 12 levels of character progression, but it's mentioned that fire attacks are some of the main features of the demon hunter and they scale in damage with your charisma spellcasting modifier. From the onset, this looks like a class that both beginner and veteran Baldurs Gate players can have fun with, as it has the closing the distance melee potential while providing spellcaster opportunities in the middle of combat as well. And yes, I will be drawing comparisons of it to the warlock class, which is also stated to be a pretty good beginner class in the community. More so, I will say that this class is something that beginners of Baldur's Gate 3 will find uniquely fun, while also at the same time, it's something us veteran players will find ample opportunities to really dominate the battlefield with. Essentially, I believe the mod author really hit the sweet spot for balancing the class where it's not insanely overpowered, but also definitely enough mechanics to have it hold its own and still be enjoyable and unique to play compared to the other classes out there. Now, for the roleplay showcase, the character we will be creating and roleplaying is an agent of Illidan Stormrage himself, the first of the demon hunters, as part of his story involves him returning to the realm of Outland to fight his true enemy Kil'jaeden, mustering his army, the Ildari, to wage open war against demonic forces. His Ildari included elven demon hunters who he created in his own / similar image. Side note for any WoW fans out there, please feel free to add any important lore I may have missed out on. I'm simply drawing upon past knowledge, which it has been a while since I've played WoW, and also the WoW wiki, and essentially just going over the surface level info of the class. I know how rich the lore is for WoW, and myself, I am a sucker for history and lore of different characters too. I will also say I am all for the roleplay aspect and won't be judging this modded class for the min-max damage output. The main focus I want to give is what features and mechanics are provided at each level, adding in commentary about the roleplay, lore, and also theming, and overall just how distinct it is from the base game classes. As I stated in my Dread Overlord Warlock video, it's always a challenge to see if these modded subclasses or classes fit within the game mechanics or just completely bulldoze everything. It is very difficult sometimes to strike that sweet balance. Now let's get on to the actual build. To fit the roleplay of being an agent for Illidan himself, we will pick one of the elven races. Drow or High Elf works just great for the base game races, but to complement the build, which focuses on speed and mobility, we are going to pick the Shadar-kai, aka Shadowfell Elves, as our race. Side note, they are different from Drow Dark Elves, as Shadar-kai were transformed by the magic of the Shadowfell realm instead of being corrupted by Lolth and actively starting a civil war with their High Elf cousins. The reasons we will pick Shadar-kai is like Illidan, they tend to fall into a morally gray spectrum, some of which try to use their Shadowfell magic for good despite it being on the darker side, and also for their mechanic Blessing of the Raven Queen. As a bonus action, you can magically teleport to a space 9 meters you can see. This is really good for repositioning and either getting away from an unfavorable matchup or closing the distance to a new target once you've slain the initial one. Other race features of our Shadowfell Elves are trance proficiencies, which allows you to pick up 2 weapons or tools and gain proficiencies in them, drawing upon shared past elven experiences until you finish a long rest. It does seem a bit situational, but it could definitely come in handy if there are weapons or gear we want to swap in and out. Also, going back to the Blessing of the Raven Queen mechanic, I will say that it's definitely something that I would personally recommend. Mobility and positioning really matter in this game, just because of the strategic importance and also the fact that it's turn-based. You want to get as much out of your turn as possible. And the last two being resistance to necrotic damage, as well as Fey ancestry, allowing advantage on saving throws of being charmed, and also magic can't put you to sleep no matter how sleep deprived you may be, just like myself while I'm making and recording this at late at night. Demon Hunter additional actions we get are also from the Havoc subclass, such as Metamorphosis, allowing you to leap into the air with explosive force, literally going all Leroy Jenkins and dealing 1 to 8 fire damage on enemies. Spectral Sight is also useful late game, allowing you to see stealthier and invisible enemies up to 12 meters. Demonic Presence is the subclass feature, increasing our movement speed by 3 and also increasing your fire damage from your charisma modifier. And yeah, movement speed plus 3 may not be a lot in most people's eyes, but it could be just enough to close the distance on that pesky archer or spellcaster that's harassing you in the party. Seeing as we are role-playing an agent and essentially spy for Illidan, I went with Charlatan for my background for the skills of Deception and Sleight of Hand, both very useful and also definitely needed for certain dialogue. Sure, you can go soldier if you wanted to roleplay as a literal soldier in Illidan's army, but just bear in mind athletics relies on strength rather than dex. And for the rest of the skills, we will go with Perception, Deception, and Persuasion. For specific ability points, we will take points away from Strength and Intelligence, allocating most of them to Dexterity, as it is our most important ability for using actually landing hits on enemies and also our actual damage output. Constitution is our second highest ability, as you want to have decent amounts of health at the start and increasing in further levels, considering you will be up close and personal. Wisdom we can leave at a respectable 10 so as not to get negatives in will saving throws, and Charisma we will leave at 14, as like Demonic Presence as said, you rely on Charisma for fire damage to scale up. And on a side note, if you want to increase Charisma to gain more fire damage, be my guest, but just so you know, you probably need to take points away from Dex or Constitution. I will say that this is just my point layout for showcasing. If you have any changes or tweaks you personally want to give or build it better for your role-playing experience or metagaming, let me know in the comments below, as those comments really are appreciated by myself. I don't mind the criticism, I actually do welcome it, and it provides insight for me to build good characters for future videos. Alright friends, this is just the beginning of the build. If you've made it this far in the video, I do genuinely thank you for tuning in, and if you love seeing and hearing about unique character builds and showcasing of unique mods to add more replayability to your Baldur's Gate 3 experience, consider hitting those like and subscribe bell notifications, as I would love to have you join in at the table for more adventures like these. Alright, now on to the full 12 levels, my friends. At second level, we have access to a fighting style and can choose between defense to gain +1 to our armor class while wearing armor, or 2 weapon fighting to complement our glaives and adding our ability modifier, in our case dexterity, to the damage output. Now, personally, I would go with 2 weapon fighting, as that complements the offensive drive and dive in and out playstyle for our demon huntress. But then again, that is just my personal build for this showcase. If you're more of a defensive player, I can totally respect that. I'm just someone who would rather out damage and kill an enemy faster than to prolong fighting for too much. At level 3, we gain 3 actions. Torment to taunt enemies into attacking us, which we can use to draw aggro from weaker enemies and focus the attention on ourselves while our allies can have less pressure on them and pick them from afar. This will definitely be a great battlefield control ability, as you are essentially acting like an offhand tank for the party. Warglaive allows us to use our weapons as makeshift boomerangs, bouncing off additional targets within 6 meters up to 3 times. I really like this as it provides a ranged attack should casters or archer enemies just be a little bit too out of our reach. And the third ability being Fell Rush. where you literally Leroy Jenkins into enemies, burning everything in your path for 2 fire damage. Also being able to cast again in the same turn and also not provoking opportunity of attacks. I love this kind of attack as it does encourage bomb rushing enemies, and while the 2 fire damage may seem measly at first, I think it's fair and not giving too much power to this ability. In fact, even though you can activate it again in the same turn, the way I believe it should be used is to rush in and then follow up with a normal attack from your warglaives. At level 4, this is when we gain the Demon Blade bonus action of adding additional 1 to 8 fire damage to our warglaives, generating more fury and lasting a total of 10 turns. We also gain a feat which I would pick ability score modifier buffing dex to 19, and pretty much you'll see why later on, trying to get dex as high as possible for us and to get the most out of our warglaives, which, if I didn't say it earlier in the video, they are finesse weapons. Level 5 gives us an extra attack as well as the I-beam action, which is literally a screw you laser blast to enemies in front of you for 3 to 30 fire damage with a guaranteed critical strike when in your demon form of metamorphosis. Now the range is short at 9 meters and there's a 5-turn cooldown, but honestly it's a solid price to play, especially when it's a guaranteed critical strike in metamorphous demon form. It's really just kind of goading and encouraging you to go demon mode early and get as much burst damage on your enemies at the very start. At level 6, we receive the Shattered Souls bonus action of consuming soul fragments, which heals for 10% max health while also providing us 20 fury. Soul fragments can be earned by enemies and also increase the chances of finding them with Chaos Strike. Now this is what we need to make the class sustainable in combat. I love the fact that while healing may be small, it's just enough to keep you in the fight, especially for those really specific too close for comfort nail biter fights. At level 7, we increase our maximum fury alongside a new action / bonus action of Blade Dance, which is a weapon damage ability striking nearby enemies 5 times with both glaives, and the last strike dealing 100% additional damage. Lots of burst damage from this ability. This is definitely a must-use ability for that high burst damage, like I said, that I would save for tough single entity bosses. You do have a cooldown, this time only being 2 turns, and like the previous mechanic, it definitely is still worth the wait. Level 8 is the Immolation Aura bonus action of igniting ourselves on fire, radiating 2 to 16 fire damage in a 3-meter area and generating 10 fury per turn. Note, it doesn't say you take damage, so I'm praying and assuming you don't know who's demonic protection and all that. I would personally use this on weaker enemies to either deal consistent damage to them or even wipe them out entirely. We also gain a new feat which we will choose moderately armored to gain access to medium armor, and we will take a closer look into the available gear to us later in the video too. Pick up dexterity to increase and round out to 20. Level 9 does grant us a new passive feature of I-beam, actually causing us to go into metamorphosis if we're not already in it for 2 turns, and Chaos Strike and Blade Dance hits having a 10% chance to decrease I-beam cooldown for 1 turn. I love this passive as it provides short-term windows of opportunities to go full demon mode, and 2 turns of metamorphosis is all that is really needed sometimes to just turn the tide of the battle. Like I said, it seems like this class and some of its abilities rely and also encourage burst damage or making the most out of like 1 or even 2 turns. And yeah, like it's definitely giving off very berserker-esque playstyle. At level 10, we're given 3 actions. Disrupt interrupts enemy spellcasters and applies silence to them for 1 turn, with 3rd level or lower spells always being interrupted, while higher level spells are more difficult to interrupt. Imprison essentially holds a creature or person in place with any damage freeing them. Blur just means attackers have disadvantage on attack rolls against you specifically. And all 3 of these actions, even the passive one of Blur, really just adds to more utility to the Demon Hunter on the battlefield and really complements them being a near unstoppable killing machine. At level 11, we gain Mana Burn as well as Chaos Nova. With Mana Burn, we do 2 to 16 damage, which sends a bolt of negative energy that burns a target enemy unit's spell slot with the highest level. Burn spell slot combusts, dealing 1 to 6 fire damage per spell slot level. If the target is a sorcerer, Mana Burn will combust up to 4 sorcery points and deal 1 to 6 fire damage per sorcery point burn. If the target has multiple types of spellcasting resource, Mana Burn will combust the highest level of all available resources. Alright, so that does seem like a lot, but essentially these later levels I'm seeing, especially with Mana Burn, it's basically like a screw you to all casters out there, and also it's kind of like a mage hunting anti-magic class too. I definitely like those types of characters too, with utilizing magic to hunt or destroy magic, if that makes sense. Chaos Nova unleashes an eruption of fell energy, dealing 32 fire damage and stunning all nearby enemies in 6 meters for 1 turn. That does seem like that's an insane, crazy amount of damage for 1 turn too. And even though it's only 6 meters, that's like essentially you like doing insane amounts of crowd control. And for the final level, at level 12, we gain more Fury points and Shattered Destiny, which gives us a small percentage chance to extend our Metamorphosis demon form by 1 turn, and Metamorphosis grants you free Blade Dance and Eye Beam. Having even just a small chance to keep our demon form going really adds to the never-ending rampage of this class, and it's a very solid final level reward for us to go into the endgame with. Alright, now on to the gear to complement our very aggressive playstyle. For the headpiece, we will be using the Helldusk Helmet, which provides infernal sight, seeing in magical and ordinary darkness up to a range of 12 meters. You cannot be blinded, as well as giving you magical durability. The wielder has a +2 bonus to saving throws against all spells. Attackers also cannot land critical hits on the wearer. Plus, we also get Immolating Gaze, which burns a target and also causes fear to them, essentially paralyzing them. And yeah, no, this definitely fits into your demonic vibes as well. The design looks really insanely sick too, and kind of reminds me of like a Warriors of Chaos helmet design from Total War Warhammer 3. Also, for the cloak to complement that hellish ability too, we will be using Cindermoth Cloak, which provides Flaming Shroud. A creature that damages the wearer within 2 meters receives burning. And I like this too because it kind of plays into you being an offhand tank. With enemies hitting and damaging you, you kind of dish back that damage in turn, or essentially punish them for having the audacity or having the boldness to strike you back in turn. Now, for our main armor here, well, really, this is where I would say you can pick and choose, to be honest, but this is where I actually decided to go with the Helldusk armor. Yes, I know it doesn't necessarily play into the whole lightly armored demon hunter mobile attacker, but hear me out here. With the Helldusk armor, you are considered proficient with this armor while wearing it. That's already a very good sign right off the bat. and with Infernal Retribution, when you succeed a saving throw, the caster receives burning for 3 turns. Yeah, I know it's a little bit redundant, but really just plays into that spiteful demonic nature of yours. With Prime Aegis of Fire, you have resistance to fire damage and cannot be burned. You take 3 less damage from all sources. And yeah, yet again, playing into the offhand tank of your party. You also get the transmutation spell Fly, and I just like that as a situational, and hey, I mean, you have demonic wings as a demon hunter, so it just roleplay it as you being able to traverse the battlefield a lot easier too. So going back to what I said, even though it's heavy armor and may seem like it's not really playing into mobility, it kind of contradicts that with the Fly transmutation spell. For our gloves, we will be using the ballast gloves, and I personally like this because it gives a +1 to attack, and also Garrot, which deals damage to enemies over time, and also kind of just has a nice nefarious feel to it as well. For our boots, we decided to go with Shadow Step boots, specifically for shadow teleportation, which I know it's more so movement, doesn't do lots of damage, but hey, like I said, it's you're going to hear this a bit with the other equipment too. It just plays into mobility, and yeah, that's the thing too, is like, I will say this yet again, mobility, especially for this class, can be a difference maker with closing the distance, and also just being an absolute menace on the battlefield, especially to casters or ranged attackers. For some of our amulets and also rings, we will be using the Amulet of Ball. On a hit, inflict bleeding upon targets that have maximum hit points, and yeah, essentially on first strike, you're automatically going to, even if it's not for high amounts of damage initially, you're at least going to make them bleed and take damage incrementally over the next few turns. As for our rings, we will be using Burnished Ring, which has Paralyzing Ray. Stopping enemies in their tracks is just as important as closing the distance on them and hunting them down. It's definitely something that I personally like using in my aggressive playstyle. And for the other ring, it may not seem like much, but Ring of Free Action gives you unwavering, you ignore the effects of difficult terrain, and you cannot be paralyzed or restrained. Yet again, providing you a better movement, and also not having to worry about that movement being restrained too much either. But also, everyone, that is my gear for this showcase. I may go back and make a separate video on switching out certain pieces of gear. If you have replacements, let me know in the comments which gear that you would personally use for your demon hunter. And like I said, my showcase and choosings for this video, it's not necessarily going to be totally metagame or min-max, which, I'll be honest, like I said, I kind of chose some things for roleplay purposes and somewhat to optimize it in my personal style, but I genuinely want to hear what some of you have created or would like to do with this character, and picking, choosing, or swapping out gear as well. I do want to hear some of these ideas and suggestions in the comments, just because, like I said earlier, it helps provide me feedback on how to make better videos in the future, and more character builds as well. Alright, that's it for this mod and character showcase, friends of the Demon Hunter. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this mod and character builds. What are some of your favorite character builds or unique classes and characters that you would like to see me cover on my channel? And if you love talking shop about all things D&D and Baldur's Gate, Hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll save you a seat at the table for the next adventure.